Hello and welcome. My name's Philip and today we're going to be looking at a little piece of Norman history in the city of York. York is a city in the north of England famous for its history. Though often overshadowed nowadays by its Viking and Roman heritage, York remained hugely significant throughout the entire medieval period. Impressive medieval structures cover the city, from the bars of the city walls to the spires of the Gothic minster, to forgotten remains of Norman townhouses. It's probably no surprise that this is where Law and I have chosen to live and work. And like most major medieval cities after the Norman conquest, York had a castle. What remains of it today is known as Clifford's Tower, a stone keep atop an artificial hill overlooking the River Ouse. Now, the colourful history of this castle is fascinating without a doubt, but it's not what I'm going to be talking about today. You see, what many people don't know is that York actually had two castles. Across the Ouse from Clifford's Tower stands a solitary mound of earth, now covered in trees and flanked by a Victorian facade offering entry to the city wall's walking route.
This is Baile Hill. It's all that remains of York's second castle and is easily overlooked nowadays. But why would a city need two castles? And why has this one been all but forgotten?
After his ascension to the throne of England in December 1066, William the Conqueror set about securing his hold on the English crown. The Northumbrian magnate Copsey, who had fought alongside the Danish king Harald Hardrada at the Battle of Stamford Bridge, paid homage to William in 1067 and was granted the earldom of Northumbria. He was Earl for 5 weeks before being murdered and usurped by a rival named Osolf, who was then murdered himself by his cousin Gospatrick. Gospatrick paid the king a sum of money to be made Earl of Northumbria himself, before quickly defecting and joining a rebellion that sought to place Edgar Atheling, a descendant of the House of Wessex, on the throne. With two earls murdered and one a rebel, William decided to travel to the north personally. He arrived in York in the summer of 1068, and the rebellion fizzled out before him, with some of his opponents, including Edgar Atheling, fleeing to Scotland. King William's visit to York saw the first castle built within the city. Almost immediately after the king left, in January 1069, a group of rebels besieged said castle. And so William returned to York once again, putting the rebels to flight. He then ordered the construction of a second castle on the opposite bank of the river.
Although it's not entirely clear which of the castles was built first, it's generally accepted that Baile Hill is the younger of the two. And both castles were built in the standard Norman motte and bailey style,
with a wooden keep upon an artificial hill leading down to an enclosed yard protected by wooden palisades atop earthwork mounds, all surrounded by deep muddy ditches or even water directed from the river. The two castles made York a formidable power base in the north of England, their commanding positions giving them control over the River Ouse and a strong disincentive for anyone considering a naval assault on the city. Unfortunately, they also made it a tempting prize to be won, and once again, when William and his army left the city, rebels assaulted and managed to capture it with the aid of Danish allies. The king returned to York once more in the winter of 1069 with the aim of engaging the rebels, but, as before, they abandoned the city and fled. The king then spent Christmas here, and it was from these castles his army launched the campaign of terror and violence now infamously called the Harrying of the North. Following the events of 1069 and 1070, the rebels in Yorkshire were firmly broken, and the city with 2 castles remained in Norman hands. So what happened to the second castle, and why does so little of it remain today? Well, the answer to that question is the same reason that most cities don't have more than 1 castle. They don't need them. Over the years, as the Norman period drew on, the castle closer to the city centre was favoured over its slightly more distant twin. And the more it was favoured, the more attention and esteem it drew. By 1200, the second castle was no longer in use. In 1322, it was given to Archbishop Melton, who swore to defend it in times of war and rebuilt its derelict defences. In the 1340s, the city walls were fortified with stone and incorporated the southeast and southwest sides of the castle's bailey. As the castle was still technically held by the Archbishop, there were a number of quarrels in the 15th century over who was responsible for the maintenance of the now crumbling defences. This culminated in the Archbishop being sued by the city in 1423 and forced to pay for the wall's repair. Not long afterwards, the Archbishop sold the castle and its land back to the city, who used it as grazing land for livestock. It's hard to say when exactly the keep was removed from the top of the hill, but it was almost certainly gone by 1644, as Baile Hill was used as a cannon emplacement during the Siege of York. During the 1880s, new housing was built over the land that was once the castle's bailey. Nowadays, you could easily walk past Baile Hill without even giving it a second thought. A mound of earth covered in trees, a slight dip in the city walls, and an unobtrusive information board are all that remains of this unique twinned castle. It can actually be quite hard for history to stand out in a place like York. The competition is so fierce. But if you do ever visit the city, take some time to walk the walls and spare a thought for Baile Hill. Thanks for watching, farewell. Hey everyone, thanks again so much for watching. We really enjoyed making this video. It was lovely getting to go around the city and just take some footage of the things that we find really interesting, that we really love. If you like this kind of video, do let us know, because we are potentially going to do some more about the city of York. It just depends how much you find it interesting. And of course, if there is some hidden Norman history to your hometown, let us know about it. We might end up doing a video about that as well. But until next time, take care, farewell.